There's also a changes document, and you can see in the upper right-hand corner where it's referenced which document to look at. And then there's also the authorized projects, cash flow, and then the current capital plan. So some of the different figures will be visible on multiple sheets if they tie into it. So for instance, the capital plan being the overarching document, but if it's been authorized already, then we're tracking existing already approved projects on that document, so you might see it there as well. Changes, this is a pretty comprehensive changes sheet. The bulk of the changes that you'll find are moving small figures, from one to another, and also moving from different years based on cash flow. But there also are some larger changes that can be noted on various different projects, particularly as we focus on items that may have not been captured previously. Also that may need larger escalators on them, particularly to get further into the outlying years. And also one of the things that we did work on is that the cash flow timing to our experience oftentimes wasn't necessarily what was being tracked previously. So we made numerous changes there. So that might be as simple as an entire project is in 1 year and we split it on the cash. The dollar amount might have stayed the same, but we split it between 2 years so that it better aligned to when we would actually go out and bond. On the summary sheet, I would note, along with all of the documents, they are notated as preliminary and tentative for discussion purposes only. By the Capital Summit, we plan on removing that sort of asterisk. It's been on since earlier in the year, but this is a very rough version where we are still meeting with departments. We've met with numerous departments, particularly engineering, DPW, to sit down and go through this, but we need to go and we're gonna have to meet with more departments, further meetings with the Board of Education, and a lot of follow-up work and a lot of sort of costing to get to a better stage. And on that note, I mean, if you look at fiscal year 26,
can I just interrupt a second?
Sure.
Thank you. I know that this is all very preliminary, and I'm assuming that Christina and I will both be invited to attend the Board of Finance capital planning when it's a more thorough review and the department heads are there. But obviously, I'm trying to follow along. There's a lot of documents here, and you're speaking kind of all over the place. Can we kind of like go through it like page by page? I think it might be easier for Christina and I to understand where we are. And there was like 2 sort of separate packets, and there's 2 page ones, then there's a whole series that goes, and then there's a page 8, and then there's another series that starts with page 1, and
yeah. Well, I think what we can do that. I think what I was hoping David would do, and he has done, is show you some of the things that you've probably never seen before, which is a change document that is very thorough, so that you can see line by line.
What page would that be?
So if you look in the upper right-hand corner, if you see something that says changes current versus 521, that's your changes document.
I think it's at the end.
So current capital plan, authorized project flow.
Yeah, so just important for you to know there that the formatting and the amount of information available is probably to an extent you haven't seen in the past. Give you a sense of what these things are.
Okay, all right, so I see current capital summaries. Then you're talking about changes current versus starting on page 1. Is that where we are going to talk about?
So, well, we can take it just on the current capital plan and go through the plan and talk about changes separately, or as we're going through.
So are we gonna do current capital then?
We're gonna walk through, it probably makes most sense to walk through the current capital plan.
The current capital would be the place. I had one more remark on the summary, and I was actually gonna I was simply gonna notate that on fiscal year 26, you currently see $78 million, which is a significant increase year over year. We have loaded things in based upon asks and needs based upon all of our discussions so far. But I want to highlight, so there's not a sticker shock, that we anticipate driving that number, I would just say back down to reality as we look to cascade the numbers further out in the cash flow. That's something that we have not done yet. That will be a part of the process over the next 4 weeks as we meet with all of the departments again. For instance, you get further out into the capital plan, you see the numbers drastically dropping on the back end of everything. So things are kind of bunched up into the beginning. Of course, everyone asks for everything and right away and say they need the cash for it all the right away. But we know projects in of themselves take even several years just to get to the point of even fruition. And then the bonding sometimes takes several years as we work through the cash flow after that. So I didn't want anybody to have a sticker shock over that. So I bring that point up. But we can take it on the summary document first if there's any questions. There's 4 documents. 3 of them are one's the summary. It's notated in the upper right-hand corner. The other one, it says changes current versus 5/21/24 plan in the upper right-hand corner. The other one is the authorized projects cash flow in the upper right-hand corner. And then the other one is the current capital plan. So whatever the board's pleasure is, in reviewing. One of them encapsulates where things stand on already approved projects. One of them is every single change everywhere, which gets pretty granular. Obviously, the summary is a summary. And the current capital, I think, is probably a healthy place to go because it just walks through everything.
Just assuming that Brenda and Christine, with fresh eyes, looking at the total plan and not necessarily knowing what the last plans were, we can just start with this plan and go through it. Yeah.
Before we get down to the details, can you just share very high level approach to this project? If there have been any changes to the way it was done in the past? If it's, you say bringing that number, the 78 down to reality, what is that realistic number? Have you gotten that far? And this is to, first to Mr. First Selectman, and I will leave it up to you to
I think the numbers and the size of the numbers is attributable to a lot of projects that were, I don't know how to put this, out there that we kind of had to get done, or now we know we have to get done, but had not been put into the plan. So going out there and really digging in with each department about their needs. And, some of this has come about with, for example, WPCA and understanding the needs of WPCA, but then also other departments, for example, fire department and others, where there was a general understanding that firehouses needed to be completely renovated, and that wasn't on the plan anywhere.
Talking about that, Bill, I don't see where that is, but I know that, we spoke about this prior, but the Board of Fire Commissioners, and we had an RFP for a station study so that we could have an actual data about our firehouses positioned in the appropriate place based on our new population and growth. And then that data was supposed to help drive us to understand which firehouses we would rehab, and some may close, some may be added, that kind of thing. But we don't have that data because that was stopped now. So I don't see where the number is, but it's not backed in any data with a station study. So I'm wondering how we're going to move forward without that kind of data. I'm sure, the Board of Fire Commissioners community at large wanted to see that data, and we don't have it. So we're kind of just like going off no data.
Well, the numbers in here are very preliminary, first of all, and they're driven by our current firehouses and the condition that they are in.
So where is that listed? Is it in the summary or is it somewhere else?
It's in the plan.
Okay. So WPCA should be pretty similar to what it was last time. I mean, their number was pretty high.
Last time being
when
our last
capital plan, we knew that WPCA had mammoth amount and it was listed, and they were still working, but we knew it was going to be a really big number.
Right,
Has that
but
number changed considerably?
Considerably as far as
Dollars?
as far as how well dollars and how it was allocated. I think the plan when you held, I believe the last time you would have held a capital planning workshop, had a big amount in the plant, and not nearly as much in the collection system. And as a result of the studies that have been done, that's been flipped around quite a bit. So a lot more has gone into the collection system and shoring up that, and making sure that the inflow and infiltration is that piece of it's tackled, and then putting part of what was planned further out for the plant in an initial amount for the plant. But actually, we have our WPCA representative here. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Christine.
I don't. Yeah. Pretty much sums it up.
So, but those are based on those are based on the engineer, the consultant engineer's numbers, and as we go out to bid on some of these things, obviously they're always subject to change, but they're at least at a level where an outside firm has taken a hard look at it.
So thank you. Just to be clear, though, you're talking about the the water infiltration inspections that we put in like a year ago. Do we have that data yet, or is that still?
No, I think it's a bit different. You had some money in there for I&I, and it was like a low level ongoing investment in that. Mm-hmm. But we've changed because there was such a large amount scheduled for the plant itself, but we're seeing inflow and infiltration at about 50% or higher. The decision was made, with John Marsilio and the board, that we were going to actually really go after the inflow and infiltration before turning towards, the plant in a big way. Okay. So it really is more going into I&I than the original idea was, a year ago.
Okay, thank you.
You want to, it's probably not a bad idea to flip through the pages, because you can see, the numbers there. We can stop, and there are some brief descriptions, but we can get into more detail.
Do you mean the current capital plan packet piece?
Yeah, current capital plan packet. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'd want to start really on, if you have questions on pages 1, 2, or 3, those are already authorized projects, so they're also authorized information. So I don't think, they've already been voted.
You're probably familiar with the first 3 pages.
Any status questions you may have. Otherwise, I would say page 4 is probably that's probably your best place to start a discussion. In that page 4 is going to be where things that may come down the line for approval.
So the first 3 pages are stuff that was already we put into place and that are in the pipeline or already completed?
Correct.
Okay, so we're starting on page 4.
Starting.
One question.
Okay.
Page 1.
Yeah.
For the Meadowbrook Road sound barrier, it potentially will need more money. Do you have an idea of timing of when we would know that? Like, is ARPA, we do have some ARPA funds still available. Do you foresee ARPA potentially filling in any holes that may exist, funding holes from already approved projects?
So the engineering department's putting together a design right now. They're using the Connecticut DOT standard design. So once we have a standard design, then we'll go out to bid. If it does come out after more than 350, we'll seek grant money to be able to add to it. But I don't think it'll be come out of ARPA. That was not the
From a
discussions that we
timeline
had.
perspective,
Correct.
it's gonna be tight probably.
Okay.
But the sound barrier at 350,000, yes, we are saving money by doing in-house design. So that gives us a little bit more fluff in going out to bid. But if the bids do come on over 350, we'll have to seek more grant money.
So what do you think? Does it just go line by line or, what do you guys?
Or there's items that stick out,
Page
one more
4,
one page
am I
to
on
pull out.
page
Just one more
4?
question.
Yeah, page 4.
Right, before we get to page 4, for page 2, for Rooster River, we were just seeing the devastation that river flooding can cause. Has there been any, you think there's a chance that maybe the Army Corps of Engineers will
Ever?
well, realize the potential liability and damage before them if there's been any information about that. And I asked it when this was before us, just about the 75K coming from Bridgeport. Have there been any more, just because they were.
750.
The 750,
Yeah.
750K. Any more discussions with Bridgeport? Are they
I mean,
being that they're planning on using ARPA? If the timing doesn't work out?
yeah, we have, we are reconfirming with them, but as of now, I believe they're aware that that's the plan and they've committed to it. They've signed an MOU for that.
Theory, I think so far is that likely they'll encumber with us and be able to have that extra 2-year window, but we're still working through as we cruise to the end of ARPA, so we don't have a firm commitment. And from an Army Corps, yeah, it's really frustrating, and I think if you look, I mean, we really dodged it the other day. It stopped at our borders, literally. I was up on Westport Turnpike, right when you hit the eastern line, they were doing a water rescue. We had very minimal on our sort of around the periphery. Fortunately, the other day, in all of our common areas, we didn't have an issue, but we were 1 degree away from that. And we can take that message again back to them, trying to get them to expedite the money. The money's there, the grant's there. You'll notice further down, and while this is 2.5 is the authorized, we have a placeholder for the other portion of the project, stay in the plan. It's sitting there waiting, on a regulatory piece that's so out of our control, it's frustrating. But we'll continue the push and try to make sure we keep them on that.
Right. More questions, I'm good for page 4 now.
No, this is great. Yeah.
That's very helpful.
Okay, page 4.
So, yeah, I mean, we can walk through every one of them, but we're gonna end up probably here for hours. The question would be if there's anything that maybe sticks out, and same if there's anything that we think to highlight. Some of these earlier, you're in the less than $1 billion bucket. A lot of these are placeholders. You'll notice some items, downtown resiliency, we've got some items here for design work as placeholders to continue working on moving that forward. It's some adjustments for escalators. Some of them are minor and they're notated in the change document. We took the car, the fire department's car 3 as an item, we added $35,000 based. And that was, we assumed a 5% escalator, which just meant that the project was a little bit more by the time you get to 2029 based upon, what vehicle and outfitting is. So, in some cases they're big and in some cases they're very minor, but we're trying to move to a, as we head to the summit, we're gonna work on having like a reliability scoring and a little bit more metrics in how we decide with the departments what numbers are placed in something versus, okay, we added 20 grand or something to that effect. In this case, we added 5% based on each year of the current project that we know of the last time we made that purchase. So those are things to find. Any questions on 4 or 5?
For the storm system improvements for various neighborhoods. Do you have a list of neighborhoods and what would be determining whether or not this gets added to operating?
So that's a good question, and our hope is that one of the things that from the boards and now into this side after kind of a hiatus, there's a number of places that found the budget to be sort of stripped out of flexibility. Knowing that just like the storm the other day, what happens after a storm like that, if it happens at Fairfield, even at a minor level, is the engineering department and public works are flooded with the pun, but they're flooded with numerous, okay, in this neighborhood, we need to make this minor adjustment. They don't have a lot of places to go, so one of the places they've been going have been funded line items like this. But eventually, what you may want to do is set up some more of a revolving account or a sinking fund of some sort that, within the operating budget that allows them to say, also, some years it's 200,000 and some years it's 3 or it's 0 or it's 100, and they don't have that flexibility. I mean, DPW carries as much as they can, but it's always at the expense of all the other projects and things that may go wrong. So right now, we've placed it in here. We're just starting to talk about the fiscal 26 budget. It may be the type of item that similar to paving and some other items where we've had to phase them in over a few years. But it'd be great to put that in the operating, because why would you bond $500,000 every year?
Just want to clarify for on the Southport sidewalk. 250K change to 600K, but then it says a request for an additional 600K. So is it 600K? Do you think the project's now going to be just the way once requested for additional 600K? Are we asking for additional 600K over the 250?
No, yeah. So if you were to go to the, for instance, if you went, we'd have to double check it on the changes document, but these are the actual numbers. So at one point, this project was at 250. We're moving this project to be a 600.
Okay, so it's
part of this is that there's a grant associated. It's taken several years to get back to the point that they can actually begin doing the work. In that process, money that was originally going to be in ARPA, some of it went, I believe it was, into the Four Corners, and some of it got reallocated out. This is something that maybe we're considering going into, ARPA at the end. The only nervousness with a project like this is there's so many utility items that when something goes wrong, our reliability of, not running into some, one telephone pole that we missed somewhere that slows a project by even 12 months. That's the discomfort of ARPA at this stage.
Christine, just to add to that, there's already an authorized project under Southport sidewalk connectivity, and it's actually on page 2, 5th line up. Originally, there was $100,000 that was authorized, and the engineering department plans on going out to bid. But based off of that, they anticipate needing more money. So we added a line item under the capital plan, right? Because we need more money for that project. But once we go to the boards and ask for more money, we will modify the resolution to request for more money, and then we'll remove it from the capital plan.
Go 4, otherwise we go 5.
So, okay, what I'm trying to do is just highlight the 26 numbers to see where we're gonna be. I'm seeing, well, I'm seeing a lot. What is the total for 26 that we're looking to bond? I'm trying to, because I know it's all spread out, but
Yeah,
So-
that's on the summary sheet and it's listed at 78 million, but again, we're not intending to bond. I mean, we can't be any more clear. We're not planning to come for $78 million. This is a document that normally in August wouldn't even be, wouldn't be released, reviewed. It's not at that stage. This is a preview of, if
Of the project.
everything everybody thought that they could do and wanted to do in this particular year, as currently stated, without even making any of the Board of Education's adjustments, which, very well may actually go down, I believe, based on best available in that first year. It would be at 78, but we now need to go back and work with all of the departments and engineering and public works as a whole, and work to reduce items, push projects further back, drive that number down, because obviously $78 million is untenable.
no, it is. So, I mean, this is good. There's a lot of new stuff in here. A lot of money on complete streets, a lot of money in fire, rehabilitation that wasn't. So, basically, we're looking at a bonding cap about 37 million between the Board of Ed and the town. And you're right, 78 million is blowing, is maxing out the credit card big time. So when will we have these numbers more concrete by the capital plan Board of Finance meeting?
At the Capitol, at the summit, we intend on having this more complete. Those numbers will be, what you'll see is your year one number, as an example, will probably drive down, but for instance, you might see your outlying years are clearly gonna go up, because a lot of things are gonna be, pushed out. Recognizing that when you push a project out, you make it fit better in the current, but you're gonna have to put escalators on those as well. So one of the things we're trying to look at is what projects, you're balancing all of the needs, but you're also balancing that some projects may escalate at higher rates. So we're also trying to be smart about, if there's a project that may escalate at a higher rate, maybe we want to actually try to do that at an earlier date, so we ultimately have a lower cost basis on it. So those are the types of things that we're trying to work through. But the Capital Summit, which the Board of Selectmen as ex officio and is invited, and the other boards, is really the one where we're hoping that the administration's version for to put out to those boards for the next review in much better shape.
Right. That's always been the challenge, right? And it's been the challenge for many years, and it was the challenge the last 4 years. You have a lot of projects, you don't have enough money, and you got to keep bumping it out. And I think, we all realistically understand that everything's going to go up regardless of the project as you push it out. But again, you have to manage how much you can spend and what are the priorities, right? Flooding, priorities, things that are danger, health and safety, roads, things of that nature. So obviously this is a very, it's good but it's very rough, and we don't really have, and the Board of Ed stuff obviously is gonna bump it up quite a bit. As far as the overall yearly bonding capacity.
The Board of Ed is included in this. It's just a question of potentially what year. My understanding is that the Board of Ed has not reviewed the waterfall collectively in advance of the capital planning workshop in September. But I don't foresee a lot of additions in terms of projects. You know, we know we have the HVAC, we know we've got the roofs, boilers, bathrooms, security upgrades, and the renovations of 2 elementary schools that we're looking at over the next 10 years. I think it's a question of
Right.
when those projects happen. So what we have before us, I think we have a idea of what projects are likely coming our way. It's more of a question of timing and when we foresee the cash flow
Yeah, and
being affected.
I think one of the things that and I know we've said it publicly at a few meetings, but one of the things we're trying to do with the Board of Ed, with working with the Board of Ed, is that in the past they viewed a specific cap number on an annualized basis, and if they had a project that they were probably not even gonna spend the dollars on until the following year, if they were worried about their cap for something else in that year, they just ask for those from a cash flow perspective in the current year. That's not necessarily, you may find that the town then made a decision not to do something in a particular year they wanted to. So if we can work the Board of Ed, and on the Board of Ed a little bit better about working through the cash flow timing, that in and of itself kind of unlocks some differences in the schedule. It isn't gonna drastically change your net spend, but it does make some differences. And they may have a project, or we may have a project in any given year that has an escalator cost of a higher percentage or some variability to it. So we wanna have that discussion. So, but no, not everything is gonna be able to, this is even if every one of these things was an absolute 100% I needed, right now, there's just realities and how much the town can bear. So it's difficult. But that's why today, getting perspective from the Board of Selectmen, as much as this is not a normal in the flow, I know that this took a few months to be scheduled. Originally, it was going to be actually a kind of an older version of this. Actually, from our perspective, it's actually really good you're seeing this with all these other things, because it makes for a more fruitful discussion and ability for the Board of Selectmen to feed back as the executive board.
Appreciate, putting this before us, especially since there are some, it's a new administration, could be a new approach. There's some new projects on here, and I think it would be valuable for Ms. Kupchak and I just to have a little bit of preview, so you're not surprised if there's something that we have questions on. We can follow up with you over the next month. The fire stations.
Yeah, of course, any.
Yeah.
Time to help it.
No, and Christine, yeah, that's good commentary, and I agree. I do, I'm gonna really emphasize that I would encourage the administration to go back and get that RFP on that fire station study. I mean, the Board of Fire Commissioners who do this all the time, and I mean, everyone agreed that it was a smart idea to have data. There's a lot of money here, a lot of money. I mean, I'm looking through these pages, it's significant. And I just think we need to have data, back it up. I mean, there was a lot of discussion about adding a firehouse, potentially maybe moving one of the firehouses and adding another firehouse, or keeping all the firehouses and adding. But again, it's just lay people saying it, and it's not, people who have real expert information to be able to share with us. And let's face it, there's other people in the town who have a priority for their project, and they're going to want to see data if money's being pulled in one way and it's not getting pulled their way. I mean, this could necessarily unbalance the education budget stuff too in schools, right? So people want data, just like we expect it from our Board of Ed, on all kinds of things that they're doing. We expect data so that we can make an educated decision. So I just hope that by the time we get to the Board of Finance capital planning meeting, that we have some real data to be able to, everyone, not just us, everybody who has to make decisions on has data to make a good decision.
Before we move on, are we gonna flip through, continue to flip, or?
Can I just follow up if you don't mind, Christine, you were saying about the Board of Ed, you said that they hadn't voted, what did you said something, they hadn't finalized their capital yet?
Well, the Board of Ed, as you know, has a 10-year waterfall. So it doesn't necessarily change that much in terms of projects, unless something, if all of a sudden starts leaking, obviously it could get moved ahead. But typically the board reviews that at the first 2 meetings of the school year. So I anticipate them reviewing it at their next 2 meetings in advance of the capital planning workshop in September. I can't speak for them, but that's just to get some feedback that some of the timing might change, or some of the projects that are before us. I have a facilities committee has been meeting over the summer. Not saying it will change, but I think that we should just be prepared for there to be some potential modifications from what's before us here today.
Do you think they'll, do you think they'll be, sort of buttoned up by the time that bigger meeting happens at the board?
I would anticipate them being, having they approved their long-range facilities plan, which was forwarded to all boards. So I think that they are moving forward on needing to do the renovation at Dwight, needing space for planning for early childhood classrooms. Historically, the roof boilers and roofs, they can shift from year to year depending on conditions. I don't know if there's been discussion about that. And then there's just the HVAC, which is with the building committee. So a lot of the information I imagine the Board of Ed will be getting in terms of those projects, which is a big price tag, will be coming from the building committee, which technically reports, through the Board of Selectmen to, the first selectman. So if we have questions about that, I guess we could at some point get an update. But I don't know. I haven't had real discussions with the Board of Ed in terms of any new numbers. I don't have that level of detail to share.
Okay, thank you.
Just anecdotally in terms of approach for our
Sure.
capital, the Board of Ed's capital planning usually happens August, September, because they get ready to go before town boards for approval, ideally, especially for a roof project, wanting to get approval late fall, just so we can go out to bid sooner rather than later in order to get projects scheduled. And later we wait very often for roofs, the cost goes up. So I appreciate, the work that was done over the summer to move this process along earlier. So we could go out to bid for some of these projects. The school is a little bit different, as you know, we have the summer, being that kids are in buildings, in order to get their projects done. Approvals need to be done sooner because there's that window of scheduling roof, bathrooms, renovations that needs to be done when kids are not in the building. So it's a little bit of an extra challenge that other town projects may or may not have.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if I don't want to speak. You've had you've been in more conversations with the school district than I have, so.
That is the gist of it. I mean, it does sound like we're gonna see something, pretty soon. I think they have a first read at their meeting, which to some degree, their first read and some feedback will be a point that we can load this on. If it may be subject in some form to change. I think we were waiting for that because you do have to realize, and I would say, this would be a good opportunity to just note the amount of time, not sitting at the table today, though listening in would be Sabrina and finance, who you have to understand every time something gets changed, it's multiple steps of change for her within these. So we really are respective of her time on managing the data portion of this. So while the thought crossed to load everything in one way, it was, let's get to a point where there's gonna be less of those types of revisions. And keep the changes doc, and all those other things kind of to a minimum. So we're waiting like about another 7 to 14 days max, and then we're gonna put a first pass and try to do that. And we're gonna have to take that opportunity to go back to the, to the board, and also, if they, just because they load something in on a timeline, and if it's not tenable, or we believe that we can work together to smooth out bonding in a few years. That's a lot of what this is smoothing out the debt service to keep it stable. We'll take that opportunity to do that. But I think that's, we have stressed to them, sooner they can kind of get that, the better, because they're a very substantial portion of the town's overall.
Has there been any discussions regarding our surplus, the large surplus that we have, to try to use some of that?
I spoke about it, at the during the budget cycle a little bit, and I think maybe one other time at the Board of Finance mostly. But we are looking to utilize that as an offset on debt service. So as we're increasing the amount of debt, we can draw off of, it gets parked in the debt service account, and we can draw some of that over a period of time to stabilize as an offset as we increase our overall debt load. So clearly, an interest rate, interest rates will tick down a little bit, though we received pretty favorable rates, this year, regardless, being AAA rated. That will help a little bit with our capacity, but you want to, if we start bonding more, clearly looking at this, even if we drive the numbers down, and I think you had referenced the 37 million, as a number, over time, we're going to increase, and that's going to have a cost. So if we can offset some of that through the debt service account, it'll stabilize the budgets.
So my question is, why would we issue debt and pay interest instead of just using that money?
We could do that. One of the problems, of course, is once you do that, that helped in that particular year. But then when we load that back in, it would actually have created artificially either a cliff in the increase or a cliff in even where we are right now. And then
I mean, on projects, not on operating, I mean, on some of the projects.
Yeah, talking on projects, yeah.
Right.
So let's say we.
Only happens when you use it in the operating.
The debt service, which is driven by how much we do or don't bond,
right,
paid for out of the operating. So, this year as an example in the budget, and I believe, and don't hold me to the exact, but it was roughly, it was a little over $1 million, I think it was around 1.2, was pulled from the debt service account, so that the bonding amount year over year, the debt service payment remained the same. Had we not had that in the debt service account, you would have had to have raised taxes by that 1.2. Now, you could have spent 1.2 on a project the year before, but once it's gone for that project, you don't, for the overall stabilization of the budget as a whole, now you no longer have those funds. There's some schedules that I'm looking to present probably at the Capitol to give an idea of what we're looking at doing, but.
Do you think it would be a good idea, rather than talk about the financing, do you want to talk about the projects or the specific projects? No,
I do. I'm just trying to understand though, this part of it. So if we issue, say, $30 million in debt, right? But then we had the remaining surplus for projects above 30 million. So rather than pushing those projects out, which are going to cost us a lot more money, I think there should be, some thought process about.
Oh, absolutely. We will consider like different iterations and what's best for the town, but I don't think we're there yet. So,
okay. I'm just mentioning it for, that's
Yeah. No. I mean, that's part of the process, definitely.
All right.
For school, say you're going to rebuild a school that potentially putting
Correct.
something that you will hopefully will not.
We can run a few of the scenarios. I've worked through some of this in relation to this and WPCA where it just is a way to go as stabilizing the tax rate as we spend more. There's a few ways that we can go about that.
I'm on page 5, or are we still on page 4 for projects? Are there any projects you want to talk about?
Well, we already determined that the 26 numbers is way above what we can afford. So obviously that's got to be modified. So I think it'd probably be best to ask more questions when we have a better idea of what we can really spend, because this number is very high. So it's hard to ask questions knowing that we're not going to be able to do a lot of that. What about the changes changes current versus 5/21/24 plan? We want to touch that. We haven't looked at those pages.
Before we come off the capital.
Yeah.
Just page 5 starts the capital.
So the changes current versus 5/21 plan. I'm trying to what is this? What are these?
One dime.
Yeah. What? Well, they're literally the changes in 2 spreadsheets, but why don't we go through the current capital plan, because I wouldn't look at it as we can't do the 70 million. I think you should look at it as, do I understand what this project is and what it's trying to achieve? Because ultimately they're all, unless you don't think they're worthy projects, but they're probably all worthy projects, and some of these are the result of years of not doing certain projects. So
no, Christine, if you want to, I'm very familiar with a lot of these. I obviously know about them. There's some new ones in here, the fire stuff and some other things, but most of these things.
Yeah, if you want to talk about the new ones that you're not familiar with.
Well, I'm fine talking about the new ones. I know that Ms. Kupchak has a time that you can't stay past 5:30, Brenda, is that correct? So
yes,
I will defer to her in terms of,
Come back.
yeah, and if there's anything that we
Come
can.
back to page.
We can always come back, but before we, I'm just gonna ask one question.
Yeah.
Can you just talk about, on page 7, for the profile firm,
Yeah, so
just given, that's a significant, where we are, status of that, and.
Yeah, so we actually have an upcoming meeting. EPA responded, gave us comments back to our comments. So now it's our turn to respond to their comments on our comments. So we use the number on this sheet based off of our LEP's opinion on how the negotiations are trending.
Okay.
There is not a set agreement yet between us and EPA. So this number is not set in stone, but right now what we're doing is we're negotiating what to sample. And based off of that, we are projecting, or our LEP is projecting, that it'll cost roughly $9 million. So that's where that number came from.
And that hasn't changed.
That hasn't changed, no. They're just negotiations are taking a little bit longer, which is on the course.
Too soon to tell, just in terms of timing, in terms of what fiscal year to put these in? Right now is.
the first pot of money that we're going to need is going to be for sampling. So we won't
Okay.
be able to
Okay.
actually remediate or whatever the final solution is going to be until we sample, and then we negotiate again on how to remediate. So it's a drawn out process.
So it sounds like for fiscal year 26, that's a definite, and then
Correct, and then
second
27.
pot of money we'll have to see in terms of amount and.
Exactly, yep. The goal
Eli,
is
we're
right
still
now.
doing the, I'm sorry, we're still doing the monitoring, right, all around it?
Yes, yep, there's some, the LEPs are out there.
It's amazing.
Just the old Giant Steps building, can you give any detail that's new?
So we are actually working on and US the lead on getting the structural analysis done on the building itself. This is a placeholder that is wanted to put something down. We knew that even just that entire site, maybe several years, you could phase it. I mean, there's a few different ways. In order to fully utilize that site, it may, there's been discussion about potentially a separate drive, road, whatever you wanna kind of call it, instead of coming in off of Barberry. So that included assuming that you have that. There's also, but that site with or without that building in place has the potential for, possibly fields or other rec uses. I know we're always at a shortage, so, that may be, so we've put a number that is a reliability score that's like a 1. But we wanted to get some items on, we wanted to put it further out, knowing that if you didn't have the capacity now and you had to wait a while, at least you knew you were moving in a direction. The status of the building will clearly dictate some decisions, as well. But we wanted to at least start moving in the direction of that discussion and
I thought
structural,
we
which is a big
have
question.
some, I mean, we did some review of that building. It's in pretty bad shape. Like
Well, I've
very
heard
bad
mixed-
shape.
Yeah, not any real deep structural review of that. So we need to know whether the building, whether basically the bones of it are worth keeping. The longer we wait, the more likely that the bones won't be worth keeping. So we need to know whether waiting on it is irresponsible or, or whether we should shore it up somehow in the interim, because, the roof is leaking and all that. But this is an example. I think, part of putting everything down on paper is that once we have everything down on paper and we're thinking about it and possibly developing plans as opposed to actually sinking big money into renovating it, we're in a better position to go out and possibly look for grant funding depending on the potential uses of it. So in this particular one, if there are certain uses of this property that we could get grant funding for, we need to know what our options are. And if we wait, I'm afraid, I think, if we wait too long and realize that we could have captured 3 million of value or 2 million or whatever, millions of dollars of value out of that existing building, and we just ignored it, and then we had to knock it down, that would have, been sort of embarrassing for me. So I think we need to know what it is what type of asset we actually have, and we don't really know that yet.
And I appreciate that, and spoke to Mr. Becker about it. And when the town purchased that property, we toured it. Very scary inside, but I think it's important that we know whether or not the structure is viable for future use, and if it's not, then we should, in my opinion, knock it down because it is a liability potentially in the state that it's in.
Right.
So
No, I agree,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you remember we went through it and I know that we did some preliminary, assessments of it. The roof was shot then, we knew that, but I think what we were waiting for, and we had a couple of bids, or offers for private enterprises to move in there, to knock it down and put something, private there, paying the town some tax dollars. That's why we were waiting, because we were getting offers. And also we wanted to put fields there. We always knew that. Now, you've got to take into consideration, you're in a very tight residential neighborhood. It's small. People will be very activated regardless of what we want to do over there.
Right.
The impact is going to be very substantial to those people because of the closeness of people. I always thought Fields was the probably least invasive, but again, people fight. They fought the softball field for girls when I was back on the RTM years ago. I mean, people fight about all kinds of things. We talked about using it as a DPW, putting equipment there, all kinds of things, all ideas, but
Right. So I think the first step would be see what that building, if there's any value there. If there isn't, then it's kind of a much easier process.
Yeah, the building and just factoring in different points of access, because I think the
Right.
concerns.
The concern like of a field in particular would be access, and the impact on the neighborhood would be significant for fields that are in use, constantly, like all our other fields are. So
do we have any, now that we're speaking about buildings that are not being used, do we have any updates on Turner? I mean, has Congressman Hines' office been able to help us there? Or?
Well, it turned out they were able to find us some phone numbers, and I called the numbers and got a hold of the guy in charge who had resigned from the Army, or had retired. So we tracked down the new people involved, and went through a process of sort of getting them up to speed, because they hadn't really put it on their radar. So we hopefully by the end of this month, or or next month, we'll have the results of another round of testing for the for the underground water. Once the water tests clean, they are then prepared to move forward and start the process for turning it over to us. They will not remediate the inside of the building, so then that will be on Fairfield, and we'll have to, we'd like to get in there and have asked to get in there prior to them finishing their testing, and so that we can assess the asbestos and other things. But if we can't, then once they allow us in, we'll do that, and we'll come up with a plan. So it could move as early as this. It could start inching forward as early as this fall.
So, I'm probably surprised to hear that, they're giving you numbers, because we went through all this. It's all been tested. We had meetings in that facility with Congressman Hines, DEP, the Army guys, everybody. And, they said it was just a leaky oil tank, and we had determined that it wasn't to the extent of contamination, right, that originally was thought. And then if they wanted, the last I remember, they just wanted to have another hearing, like a public hearing kind of thing, which was silly, because we had gone through everything for years and years, but they wanted just another open process, and it was supposed to be, like, we would do it and then it would be over and we could take hold of the building. So I guess the guy left, and that happens a lot, and it sets you back.
Yep.
But,
so we did get a hold.
Extensive notes on that, and I know that Hines' office has them as well. We were supposed to just hold some. They were supposed to hold some 60-day public hearing, and then we were supposed to be able to be turning over getting the building, in our possession. This thing has been such a circle jerk. It's unbelievable, but.
We are looped in with Jim Himes's office, and we have the letters that they've written on it, and hopefully the letters do say the last round of testing of the groundwater is this month.
Oh, good.
So that's sort of the determining factor, and if that comes back positive, then we can, move forward. I don't know how long it will take, and they weren't really sure once that happens, but hopefully it'll be pretty quick.
Yeah, thank you. I
But
mean,
nothing's
listen,
quick with them.
I get it. Just a word of advice, you really have to keep poking those people because they're very not helpful.
Change, new or change?
Good for now.
Yeah, is there anything on,
Goes through page 7.
page 7? Yeah, you asked about the fill pile.
The rest is POE, then you go to the, page 9 and 10.
Yeah, most of this stuff.
Go to the changes document next, and come back to this one.
Yeah, should we go through the changes document now, or?
Changes documents have the same items, just highlights what has been
Right.
shifted through the year.
And that's shifted since the 5/21/24, which would have been the last version, and if we came, not necessarily a capital summit, but if any sort of bonding requests are made, and I don't remember the exact project that it would have been on that date, but any time that the bonding requests were coming forward with a current state, and we update changes document at that time, so that the boards always can see the current status of the overall capital plan, because even beyond the summit, it changes on a regular basis. It's a living document. So this is a 13-page document. There's lots of movement around. There's an explanation of changes, comments on this, and as Eli had mentioned, this is, any project on this is already on the capital plan. So if there's any specific questions, certainly
I
go.
see that Tide Gate, South Pine Creek Tide Gate need approval for increase approximately 2 million additional funds. Once
Yeah.
approved, the two will be combined in an authorized need to discuss with bond council. What's going on there?
So that's gonna be on the 8/28 agenda for the Board of Selectmen. It went out to bid, and that's based on bid information.
That's gonna be on the agenda next.
That's gonna be on for next week's Board of Selectmen.
So it jumped an extra 2 million.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's the kind of project I was talking about before, obviously this is that thing is a very important thing as far as safety of that entire area. So I'm glad to hear that we're gonna be moving forward. That's good. I'm not glad to hear it's gone up so much, but
Yeah.
I mean, listen, we gotta do that. Can't fool around.
And I think as we have escalated a lot of these projects more, and as we dig in further, we actually hope one day to have the capital plan done for as close to accuracy as you can, but have these go the other way sometimes. So a project like that, what we're trying to do is identify through this plan anywhere that we think things may be off, and actually go more aggressive with the escalators. Because, $2 million as an example, that we now definitely have to bond in 26. We happen to know about it now, so we're loading it in, but if we found out about it, a few months from now, that really shifts, that's $2 million worth of projects that then have to be moved out after all that work. But so
Attorney Creek, already. Oh, I see. Yep,
yeah, that's it's underway.
yep.
Some of these are cleanups, by the way, so I know a question had come up earlier, bottom of page 3, the Meadowbrook Road sound barrier. It was originally slide it would be bonded in 2025, and then due to the uncertainty of some of the numbers and the grants, it got banned in 2025. So we've moved it to be bonded in 2026 as the placeholder as we work through that. So some of these, there's several on that page that are similar situations where it's timing, moving the bonding to band, and then moving the bond to a different year. So those are minor adjustments, but they're reflected. So I know this is a long list set of documents, but a lot of it's, also encapsulating because in May, we hadn't gone out to actually bond or ban yet. Whereas now that we have all that real information.
Probably worth mentioning the raise your hand.
Go ahead.
Downtown resiliency and what we've done there.
So downtown,
That's PG.
resiliency. There's a few things, we've got some adjustments in the design on page 6, and then when you get out to page 8, halfway down, the downtown resiliency, page 4, for the design, and then page 8. Page 8 where we moved it. So what we did with this was downtown resiliency as a project had been sitting in several different years, and in different phases. And we're looking at, it's fiscal 26, 7, 8, and then out in fiscal 32. We're looking at treating this probably ultimately similar to Rooster, where we're gonna start to talk less about the phases over time and talk about the project as a whole. ARPA has been a piece that was driving the bulk of the initial work for the design and initial engineering plans. We're actually planning now to go on all 4 phases to a complete design package. It's become clear that this project is probably actually gonna end up being, it's anywhere from this 16 million all the way up to probably 30. And we may need to start to try to look for, state or even federal government grants or direct, congressional type support to be able to do a project like that. Because it's just gonna become a massive undertaking. The more they get into how technical it's gonna be, moving different pipes and going around different pipes and put cross escalators on it. So instead of clouding 26, 7, 8, or even 32 with numbers that are probably not even realistic at this point, and definitely not in those years, we didn't. This would be an example of we didn't take it out. We left it on the schedule. We pushed it right now to 35, and it may go into a future column that says, seeking significant grant dollars. But there's a few projects like this that are, again, they're almost untenable for the town to try to endeavor that on our own. So that was a big kind of a cleanup thing. We've done that with a couple of other projects that are listed below that. These big, broad, sort of almost moonshot pump station type projects. One of them being a $27 million massively conceptual project that we don't even know the feasibility of the engineering and sort of just put on there. So we've kicked those to the 35 column for now, and are you designing them? Are you going to the feds asking for support for that? Obviously, downtown does not mean that downtown is not a priority. It just means that if it is a $30 million project and it probably needs to be done in one big shot, we're gonna have to look elsewhere for the dollars. The better design, continue the work that we started under ARPA, is the better designed and costed we are, the better of an opportunity we have to go and actually get those dollars. Those who are truly shovel ready from the start and realistic seem to get those big infrastructure dollars these days.
I didn't, on the prior capital list, there was, sort of out in the was like a list we put together about these big pie in the sky projects that we knew we wanted to do. We just didn't know if we were gonna have the money, was the senior center upgrade. Is that anywhere still here or has that been removed?
Kitchen.
No, I mean, like we had a long-term, like,
Oh.
if we could,
Like a big,
obviously we can't put a lot of money into that building, right away. It has to always be done incrementally, but
Yeah, design.
we had like a $20 million placeholder for either a new senior center. We were thinking of using either Turner for it or moving them somewhere else, or, incrementally upgrading the current senior center so that our seniors could have a, much better facility, more in line with our surrounding community. Is that, anywhere?
The design work is on page 1, and I think, just looking through, I do not believe, we certainly didn't take it off, so it might have lived on like a paper document on a spreadsheet, but I don't believe the actual placeholder of, some massive number ever existed on these spreadsheets, but this would be a good example, and I would say of the helpfulness of this particular meeting at this earlier stage, is there's design, and you raise a point that we actually, and we'll go back and we'll make a revision in an outlying year and actually add, even as a placeholder on the spreadsheet, to a senior center project placeholder, right? Even if it's a score 1 and we put a few $1 million and we start to put it on here, because so thank you for that. That's definitely helpful. So, and any.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the
Yeah.
seniors have been asking for so many years for, and we know our limitations in that building because of the floodplain and all of that. But honestly, we tried to do our best with the kitchen and the bathrooms and the HVAC, small incremental, but the building really, they need more space. They have a lot of social services needs. Obviously our seniors have been dealing with inflation in a way that is much more impactful than people who have, current income, people living on fixed incomes. They have a much more difficult time, and I know, I hear it. I hear it from people all the time. They're using our social services department to get help with a lot of things because, they're getting squeezed. So I don't know. I just always felt really, to be perfectly honest, embarrassed about our senior center. When a town like Shelton has a better senior center than Fairfield.
We'll add that as a placeholder on it, and it's no slight of, I mean, this is as many of the projects as going through, the DPW, they oversee over 80 buildings, so we're gonna actually have to go through every single one of those through all the plans over the next month, but it's helpful, with the design, we're definitely gonna put a placeholder for that, so that was helpful to point that out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I ask about the McKinley School connectivity? Now, I know that we put that in a while back, and we got the grant money for all that stuff, but I know there was a meeting and we got some emails from residents saying that they weren't aware of these like sidewalks being added. Could you just I know it's not exactly pertinent to what we're talking about, but how did that meeting go the other night?
well, it was a wonderful meeting, and a lot of people showed up. Some people didn't feel that, that they should have sidewalks on their street. The majority of the people there really want sidewalks. So, and there was a feeling amongst some that they weren't aware that this was really happening, that the grant was being applied for. The grant, I guess, was applied for several years ago, and it got rejected, and then reapplied this past year and got accepted. It is. Are you there?
Yes, 1 second, please.
Okay, all legitimate concerns, people, but typically we wouldn't have a meeting like that until we had 30% value engineering, and have something to actually show people. There was really nothing engineered at all yet, so no real recommendations for where the sidewalks would go, which side of the street, what issues there would be with fences or trees. So it was hard. We could listen to people's concerns and mark them down and ask them to communicate further with us, but didn't really have anything to show them other than a very, very general map. There were some concerns about the fact that the streets were all of the parallel streets like Cardinal and the streets parallel to them, as opposed to Knapp's Highway and Old Stratfield. And they asked why, and the answer to that was just that was the only way to get the grant. And Bill Hurley did explain that to them. They had to be roads that sort of fed into McKinley, but that those other streets will be, they are. The plan is to make those streets safer as well. And some people thought, hey, I never see a lot of kids walking on my street. They don't walk to school, so why do we need sidewalks? But we all know kids don't walk to school if their parents are worried about them getting run over. So it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. It was a very, very nice meeting. Very, really, really nice group of people, and with a lot of good questions and a lot of good comments.
No, that's helpful, and I appreciate that. It's just, people had asked, and I, always remembered that, there was this whole formula where, and I knew we applied for the grant because we did it back when I was there, but I know that the whole sidewalk thing is so controversial, right? So, like 80% of the people on the street may want it, but if other people don't want it, it holds it all up because the petitioning, and some people don't want to shovel a sidewalk in front of their house, and all that comes with it. Sometimes the street is not wide enough to add the sidewalk. You're taking a significant portion of people's front yards, and things like that. I know it's a
well, that is the issue. It's that
yeah.
They didn't even, they don't have the survey yet. So
right.
And the only reason we had it because some people were concerned. They had heard, we talked about getting the grant, and they said, what? A lot of people knew about it, but some people didn't.
Okay, thank you.
On page 5 of the changes, the tennis court rebuilds, that's Park and Ellen Fish. What's the cost is number of courts, type of court, the cost differential between projects.
Yeah.
Page 5 on
Changes current, yeah.
changes current.
Still pickleball?
No, that's Park tennis court rebuild, top of the page, and Owen Fish Park court rebuild. Just
Veterans Park Tennis and Owen Fish.
Yeah,
The
just-
Veterans Park it's almost double the size.
it's a size issue.
Yeah, these are all based off of vendor quotes
Okay.
that
Okay.
Anthony received, but since we pushed them out in
Okay.
26 and 27, we had a little bit of escalation.
Okay.
It's just size.
So that's Park is bigger. Are they going to be tennis, or is there?
Tennis courts, yes. I know now pickleball.
Right now pickleball is like, is it gonna be tennis or?
Answer cautiously, right?
Yeah.
Can I ask what the complete on page 6, complete street South Benson only placeholder 2026, 2 million?
Yeah, so this is it's not yet designed, but it's a plan to make South Benson safer to walk and bike on. Had a lot of accidents there, and people driving into people's yards, and so we're going to propose some sidewalks, and making existing sidewalks better, and widening them and putting in curb higher curbs. Right now, there's either no curbs or like 1-inch curbs, so better separation from the sidewalks. And also some street designs like curb bump, sidewalk bump outs, and various different and crosswalks.
Thank you. So, I'm sorry, I do have to sign off soon. Would we be able to, sort of get a little bit, I appreciate the information on the side, but maybe a little bit more backup on some of the stuff I know. There's, like I said earlier, there is a lot of new fire, lot of fire stuff here. Could we get some more backup, like what it is, or like explanation on all that stuff? And maybe some of the other, I'm interested in the Rooster River, like what, I know we have the phases, but just a refresher for the board with the backup with the next phases. How did they fare during last, the flooding? Just sort of maybe an update so we can get a little bit more information.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. And also, I'm sorry, and also the Smith Richardson funding I see throughout the documents, driving range, and then I see some additional upgrade to the course. Could we just get a little bit more data on what that is?
Yeah, I don't think we have a ton yet. That's part
of the 10-year subcommittee.
They have a subcommittee working on a plan, so we just wanted to make sure we had something in there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
This is similar to what they did about a decade ago, for about a decade. Now they're coming back with the next sort of. And Brewster really hasn't changed since the last time it came to the boards. It's still waiting on Army Corps. We can confirm, but to our knowledge, this round of flooding dodged, unfortunately. But yeah, so not that all of the information at the last round of approval is exactly the current state.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's anything you haven't seen for Rooster, but we can double check.
Gotcha. And one other thing, I know that we just recently approved some additional funds to shore up the underneath of the old town hall, but I don't, and maybe I missed it. Have any is there anything, a placeholder in here to try to fix that building? I mean, if any building is in need of upgrades more than any other building in this entire town, it's that building. That building is so disgusting. It smells. Floors are sinking. I mean, everything is really bad in there.
So one item that is not in here right now, and it's finally making there's a couple of different parts to it, but it's what you're speaking of, outside of there is some money for that in the overall townwide facility, as you know. But we are looking at reworking, some of the offices, and also making some security enhancements between Old Town Hall and Independence. But in the absence even of, that will be on, but some placeholders will be placed onto here by the time we get to the Capital Summit. We did not put that on yet for right now in greater detail. Because of we're trying to look through what, if we were to do a project sooner, may actually come out of the townwide facilities and be accelerated. It's one thing to put placeholders, but actually in the absence of some information to just throw a number on, we didn't really want to do that yet. So by the time we get to the Capital Summit, we'll be able to clarify a little bit more with Independence Hall, Old Town Hall, and how it fits within town facilities, and some additional dollars.
Right. I mean, listen, we had a security assessment when I first came in there. It was very expensive, and I didn't think it was like that important, to be honest. I didn't want our town hall to be like some of these other ones where, you have to be buzzed in and it's like a security compound. But the old town hall, we did a lot of stuff to upgrade Independence Hall. we were thinking about, you're probably aware, moving probate over to the old credit union. We want to bring economic development into the main building so they could be more interactive with the departments they work with. But I mean, people go into that building, they go into the town clerks, they go into the tax collector, the tax assessor, the register of voters. The upstairs primarily isn't used at all, except for economic development. And if you're trying to, if you're a business or if you're interested in economic development, that is like the worst entrance to our community, walking into that building and then having to go upstairs. It's just, it's terrible. So I think that's a priority. I just like to get some more information if the administration is like looking at trying to fix that up.
Yeah, we are looking at it. We don't have numbers yet, but
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. That's all. I just want to mention it.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea for timing for some of these renovations, or just wait to the town for the summer?
Well, I mean, as much as, I mean, there's different versions of discussing, you know, security and what to do, but for instance, this building as it stands right now, one baseline is that we're all in this conference room right now and the rest of the building is open. And you could walk into building or TPZ and you could walk out with anything you want, and you know, you put the right.
I mean,
you know, I mean, I know I shouldn't say that.
For the public.
You know, I think the public knows it. I mean, the public has expressed, well, some have expressed that, you know, at a minimum, key fobbing type system. So after 4:30, there are some things we need to do if you want to come in for a meeting, and how do you do it? I mean, there's degrees of, and some of those can be done near term for not massive dollars, and we're trying to work through that. And same, economic development being over here, I mean, you hit the nail on the head about that, and you know, I think it's, you know, we need to work through you know, how we address that in terms. So I think placeholder numbers that are not a score one, you know, lowest when we get to the Capitol Summit is our first for addressing that Old Town Hall needs work, security in some form, and a rework.
If there's
Funny
going-
story, if you want to hear it, we had a late night meeting in the second floor conference room. I don't know if it was Board of Finance or RTM. We're all in there, and somebody noticed somebody walk behind the door, and it's like, you know, 10:00 at night. We're like, somebody said, "Did you just see that?" I'm like, "Ooh, somebody's in the building." And I'm like, "Should we be alarmed?" So we called the police, and they came, and they apprehended Jerry Spino. And they didn't know who he was, and he didn't have his ID on him. It's like a whole,
Poor Jerry.
pretty embarrassing. We felt bad, but again, we were a little nervous because we're like,
So I think,
so.
yeah, so those are
Anyway.
the types of things, tightening up even a little bit will be.
Well, and if we're going to maybe think about executive session, if it's going to be any sort of discussion about security, and you'll know more, that maybe we just schedule that as part of
We're
that.
hoping some round of approvals comes by spring to the boards with early stage at some level to make, you know, to make that impact. And there is a, you know, there's a balance there that has to be struck, and the boards and everybody to meet that.
Well, thank you, everyone. You obviously can keep meeting, but I do have to pop off, and I appreciate the time. This has been informative, and I look forward to the additional information and the meeting coming up in September.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for the feedback.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, just to,
Sun's on. Frank, you could come down. You just dropped off.
Sabrina's handed on though. Yeah,
Sabrina's on.
we haven't adjourned yet, so.
Oldfield?
Oldfield, like the condition of the portable, like the nursing.
Yeah,
Back
yeah.
there, like nothing.
It's, yeah.
Yeah.
Here, and I
So-
appreciate that,
That's a good point.
you know,
Yes.
certain decisions that are made about certain spaces might impact.
Yes, so there are two items that with the portable that we're working through addressing. one of them is near term, being able to move certain things that are in there out and possibly into some other spaces. And the other, not so even requiring much or any of an ask on dollars. The personnel piece fits somewhat in the public health nursing being there, fits somewhat into the overall discussion of the reworking of spaces between these two buildings and how we manage that, with a goal that possibly health and public health nursing might be able to be in the same space, and then in a space that fits from a public access. Obviously, they're front facing at times. And again, if can't necessarily, I don't want to necessarily say and next summer based on spring bonding, but if you do some of if you just go to action on some of the reworking, we're actually looking to put some of these things in motion in a near term fashion, because otherwise we're just going to be spinning our wheels with people in a decaying building, people in misaligned spaces from their mission.
Yeah, I think that,
and if you're gonna talk about even, yes, that level of security discussion would be private, but if you're gonna talk about doing something for one and another, well, you can sort of manage fixing an issue somewhere else by putting people into the same, one of the buildings that's addressed. So that is front and center. It's just, it was hard to, we could have just put 2026 and 7 and dropped $3 million on to encompass all of them. We had done that in so many other spaces, and I felt like it's like a lingering item that by September we should be able to address.
yeah, I wasn't even suggesting just putting it on or adding it, but it's more, one of the reasons to have this discussion is just to, there's other things that, other needs that just don't make it, just other decisions need to be made. Child's Garden is going to be moving out, so there's going to be space there. We don't 100% know what's going to go in there, and that could potentially impact, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Just for talking about moving probate, I do have concerns. I'm going to put it on the record. Moving it to a second floor, just in terms of accessibility for members of the public that do access the probate court, individuals, and I'm coming from personal, having gone there on a personal for my son, who's going to be 18, has a disability, that I would just ask that we be very conscious of the elderly, the disabled. Right now, it is ADA accessible. Putting on a second floor, I think that we need to be really cognizant of access, number one, and out of the users that are using it. It is a forward-facing office as well. So if we're going to be moving them, I just want to make sure that it's.
Well, regardless,
putting
we do
for-
have a bid out for elevator, and
Either way.
that would have to be, that
Yeah.
would have to be upgraded regardless. It would have to be reliable.
And just in terms of timing, having gone through, school elevators, very often it just takes.
Right, so we're not actually.
So I'm not sure, as I look at some of these days, just thinking how long it actually takes to get a new elevator
Yeah.
in and installed.
Yeah, so
The problem is you have to pay for them
Nothing's-
up front. You have to pay for them,
I mean,
it's such a long lead time item for them to come out.
So I would not
yeah.
hazard a guess when that could happen, even if it does, if it doesn't.
So I guess it's a stay tuned.
One of the things
Some of
we're,
these.
no, but one of the things that we're trying to come up with, if possible, and it does have some difficult decisions, so someone going to second floor in a place like Old Town Hall, there's a second floor here, which elevator in the space. But one of the things that we're trying to do is see if we can avoid what was projected at an $8 to $10 million, add-on. For $2 million, you might be able to rework space throughout, and I think that and it was raised earlier with the firehouses, I'm sure we'll have a lot of discussion, but that's a similar item. Go do a study, it's gonna tell you possibly that every station everywhere is where it's not supposed to be, probably the exception of Jennings Road. A new firehouse, even if you got the land for free, sited and built, as an outlying station is most likely in the $8 to $10 million range. As you can see right here, for just over 12 million, with actually rather escalated numbers, you have all new. It's the same applies when we
I don't
look
think-
at space. You could reconfigure, you can eliminate file cabinets and digitize and move people and spare yourself trying to drop some massive addition here.
That's probably a
it's tough
conversation for when
because-
Brenda's, because she,
Yeah.
you know, if she wants to have
Yeah, and I think
conversation,
we're,
she should probably hold off.
yeah, and I think we're gonna have, hopefully we have all those discussions and the boards have to decide. I mean, where do you want new space? Where do you wanna renovate? Should someone be on the second floor or the first, or? It's
So you're right,
difficult.
that portable.
Yeah.
It's just not right. It isn't
Yeah.
not right now.
Portable's gotta
So,
go,
You know,
near term,
Yeah.
it's gotta go.
they found a raccoon in there, didn't they?
I mean,
I mean, it's in bad shape.
no,
It's old.
yeah, but I mean, I think there's a lot of just open, the Turner site, the Giant Step site,
Got places to,
Pilot House, Child's Garden, that
And
it
that's,
might be
yeah, that's
premature to
make any
decisions,
long-term decisions till we
until
get,
some more information about a lot.
yeah, that's sort of the problem, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also potentially great, because we've got two sites.
Yeah, it could be an
We have
opportunity.
no idea what the value
Yeah.
is gonna be.
we should have by the summit, the engineering piece.
Yeah.
We should have that within a few weeks, so that's helpful too. By the time we
Yeah,
come
that-
back
The
for the
structural
summit,
report.
we'll have that. I know that that's something a lot of people will ask,
Yeah.
that one piece, so.
Regardless,
so
it's
that's good.
really important to have a different entrance. If that's, anything's gonna work there, yeah, I think.
And
We've asked engineering and conservation's weighed in on some very preliminary, hey, start looking at what that would look like. An additional access way, what are the variable, at least start conceptually, internally, it's a thing, so.
And what else is out there that's not on here that, the Sturgis Road, do you foresee any need to put any capital
Well,
into that property in the short term?
well, we've
If it moves some-
approved 100,000 and we had 40,000 sort of, in case we needed to do remediation, and we don't have to
Okay.
do any of that. All came back, the tests were good,
That's great.
the oil tank is gone, and now it's just a matter of closing and then connecting the sewer system. Right now it's septic. And then there's a list of things
Okay.
that you guys put together, and James Ryan will cost them out. And
Okay.
yeah, but like handicap accessibility and just clearing out some dead trees and things like that.
My last question that's not related, just the Burr.
For
Burr Mansion.
mansion.
Burr Mansion. I'm not even gonna touch the school stuff. I'll just, tons of questions about that, but I'm gonna just focus on town right now. Heard rumors that there was at one point a plan for some sort of ballroom, atrium. I don't know if that is true or not.
I've never seen those, but I
And I
think
don't-
there was
And I would
some
just be
sketch.
curious to know if there is something and how much
don't
the
think
cost
we-
estimate was.
I'm not sure that ever came to the town. It was it was several years ago. I think Michael J. Lee may have commissioned that, but we can get it from him.
Yeah, we can try to ask around. It wasn't, first I'm hearing of that, but it's
Yeah, I've
worth
never heard
Well, and I'm,
asking around.
and it was really mentioned to me. I was at a town event back of the Burr and somebody said that the study was done and the town said no, and I had not heard of it. So
I have
don't
no
know if
idea
it was.
whether it was just an artist sketch or what a real, like a design.
Yeah.
Some of this becomes a recoup. I mean, even Burr, as it currently stands, has been, it has been very difficult for them to manage and money involved. I think to some degree, and I say this, if you go to the history museum, but if if a nonprofit can't do it at a break even or profitable management, you know, then you usually you're in a tough spot. So you know, you'd have, unless adding something like that really added a lot of potential that had use, that had a lower, you know, that have mitigated the sound and the traffic
That's
impact,
right.
and you gotta address a lot of things. That's the struggle with that. You know, it's like it's a gem, but it's also a, you know, it's a struggle. I mean, growing up in town, it's first always been there. There's no, you know, it's
And it's,
like,
I mean, the historic significance is,
I mean, the
It's
historic,
great.
well, the historic significance, and there are still just events there,
I
but.
still want the old taste of Fairfield to come back.
Yeah, but and I think that, you know,
is it there?
This whole thing was a taste of Fairfield. I remember out there with the concerts, you'd come back, make the turn, and the concerts sitting on the stage back there.
Should we adjourn and
Yeah.
chat, or, yeah,
all right, well, that, just putting it an official,
Anyway,
if it
yeah.
exists,
Oh, yeah.
just be curious at some point.
I'm just looking at
Yeah.
Chelsea, she
No, we'll look.
wants to get home.
I know. And
And crew.
Their town
I've got
asset.
like 7 people texting me right now. I'm sorry.
You're supposed to, motion to adjourn?
Hey, it was only 10 minutes past.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, seconded, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, we are.